Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another live stream with me, Grizzly. This is Grizzly True Crime, and today we're going to watch these two, okay, Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt be sentenced because, you know, this type of case is so enraging. It's so heartbreaking. It's just, oh man, it's a lot, okay? So we have to see these bad people face some consequences. Now, as we know, Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt got the same deal. They were originally charged with 6 charges of aggravated child abuse, saying that for YouTube. And then they got a deal and they pleaded guilty to 4 of them. So they were sentenced to serve 4 to up to 30 years in prison. Okay. So I really hope that it's going to be the maximum time. Otherwise, we're going to be so angry. Imagine if they release them after like 4 years. I'll be like, what? I mean, that could be, you know, before 2030. Oh my goodness. So before we get into all of this, welcome to all my moderators. Thank you so much for everything you do. Welcome to all my patrons. We are going to have a Patreon only live stream right after this one today. So if you are on Patreon, make sure you check your notifications. You normally get them on email or on the app, or, you know, those are the 2 places. And I've also let you know on the community chat that we'll be having a Patreon only live stream today. And I'm going to show you something special from Switzerland. And then welcome to all my members. Thank you so much for everything that you do as well. And now, and my subscribers and everyone. Okay, welcome everyone. I know there's someone that's going to snark in the comments. Stop welcoming everyone, Gisla. Welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Please like and share. What I want to show you, just to get us like really warmed up, if you don't know about this case yet, I think it's the 3rd public live stream that I'm doing about this case. Once upon a time, we spoke about this case on a member stream and looked at some of the clips and things. And with all this new information that's become public overnight, which means the entire FOIA file, yeah, we took another look at it, and it's just devastating, you know? Oh, man. So, also, before I dive into this, I do want to say, that diary, that journal of Ruby Franke it's very hard to read. It's really difficult seeing a mother talk like that about her own children. And, you know, I feel for the children with all of that out there. Like all the words, you know, they were abused and they were rescued. But those words that she wrote about them being evil and cold-hearted and all this stuff, it's just, ugh, man. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, because it's the easiest place to share documents, and on Patreon, you can make posts for everyone. That's completely free, okay? It's not behind a paywall or something. I'm going to put that diary there for you if you haven't read it yourself yet. Please be warned, it does come with a trigger warning though, okay? So that is what I'm going to do, and I will be also putting together a case file for you with all this footage we've been looking at all in one place. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at an interview from 6 months ago first to get us warmed up, okay, for this, so we really can feel snarky for that sentencing, okay? The sentencing took place in February, so about a month or so ago. We're first going to look at this interview here with Jodi Hildebrandt's niece, but she's non-binary, so the word to use is apparently nibbling. I don't know that. Okay, so we're going to look at her interview because it really sheds some light on Jodi Hildebrandt's behavior and a repeat of the pattern. It's just, oh my goodness. So I wish there was justice for her as well. I wish that was part of it, you know. Okay, so let's have a look at this. I've boosted the sound for us and I'm playing it at 1.1 speed. This is 18 minutes long. Okay, so we're going to watch this. Then we're going to watch the sentencing as well.
When was the last time you either saw, spoke to, or in a way heard from Jodi? Has it been a long time?
It's been a long time. I think it was a family member's wedding, like probably over a decade ago.
You were also under her care at one point, right?
Yeah, I was left in her care when I was a teenager, for a little under a year.
Have you met Ruby before?
No, I've never met Ruby. This is the first time I've ever even heard of her. I have gone and watched at least some of her videos. They're very difficult to watch just for my own experience with that form of therapy or therapy. It's quite triggering, to be honest. So I've never met her, but the things that she is saying and regurgitating are very, very familiar to me. It's interesting to watch I understand this, but it's interesting to watch the world respond to her and kind of putting her at the forefront. And I understand that she's the mother of these children, and it makes sense. But the philosophies and the therapeutic modalities that she's using are Jodi's. And these are not new. These are not, this is a pattern that Jodi has been engaged with for at least 14 years. I don't know if there are other people that she's used these on.
Probably if the church was recommending Jodi Hildebrandt. Okay, hold on, let me pause.
She's definitely
on a better face. There we go. Sorry about that. Her name is Jessi, by the way. I'll put that up there now. If Jodi Hildebrandt was a recommended therapist from the LDS Church, can you imagine how many people she's counseled? There are other people that have come forward to say that, yeah, she did this to me as well. Or as the husband saying, yep, she said that I had an addiction too, and also wanted me to leave the house and things like that. So it's all coming out now. But can you imagine how deep this really goes? You know, because who are the people recommending Jodi Hildebrandt? Like, who are they? And why? Do they not know anything? They knew that she was gossiping about her own clients to them. They became kind of like whistleblowers, the people who, and also part of Jodi's tactic to then extort them, threaten them, coerce them. Like, what? So I think that Jodi Hildebrandt has quite plausibly, we could speculate, ruined many lives. Imagine all the parents that she taught this boot camp stuff to. Oh my goodness. And her books are still out there on Amazon. Oh man. Okay, so.
Definitely taught. I know that she teaches parents to use these types of therapies, as she would call them. So yeah, it's been a really interesting experience watching everyone focus on Ruby, and I understand why. But this is Jodi. These are Jodi's words. These are Jodi's ideas. These are over decades old. So yeah.
Is that why you've called Jodi the mastermind behind all of this?
Yes. That doesn't excuse Ruby's involvement and her perpetuating these beliefs and these systems, but Ruby didn't come up with this. Ruby obviously supports it and has used these on her children, but this is coming from Jodi.
In short, can you describe what you mean? Like, which practices are you talking about, just to make sure we're clear, because I know there's a lot out there. So which ones are you talking about that you've seen, that you're hearing about pertaining to her children, that you're familiar with too?
Sure, yeah. So the things that I experienced while living with Jodi, I experienced being tied, I experienced being duct taped, I experienced being blindfolded, I experienced severe isolation, I experienced severe emotional, spiritual, and psychological abuse. I experienced the being told I shouldn't be around other people, being told that I was dangerous to be around. People were afraid of me to the point where I was afraid of myself. I was physically, I was forced to sleep outside in the snow. I was, like I said, isolated for up to 12 hours a day.
It sounds similar, right? Being forced to sleep out in the snow. And Ruby, Frankie's kids, were forced to be outside in the blazing sun in the desert. Like, all kinds of strange punishment, all sorts of projections and just horrible abuse.
If someone spoke to me directly, if I wasn't wearing duct tape on my mouth, I had to just stare at them and not respond, because she also had systems of people that would report back to her if I broke any of these rules. And her whole thing, which is darkly ironic, is that everything stems from shame and how horrible shame is. And that all of the reason, like all of mental illness, all tics, so like OCDs, addiction, everything stems from shame, which is just horrifying because she is the greatest perpetuator of shame. She also, and this is like a very deep connection and why I chose to come forward to the media rather than just staying with the podcast. She accused me of being a sex addict. She accused me of being addicted to masturbation, to the point where I wasn't allowed to, I mentioned this on the podcast, to the point where I wasn't allowed to use tampons. I never was allowed privacy unless I was isolated. So
what? So Jodi does this over and over and over again?
That included the bathroom. I was never allowed to have the door closed because she was convinced that I was just constantly masturbating. She was convinced that I was addicted to porn. I had never seen porn at that point in my life. I didn't even know that people with my anatomy could masturbate. Like I had no idea any of this stuff, but I just believed her because everything, like one, she used religion and God as a mode of control, and a mode to manipulate. And so I just believed all of these things. So her ability to convince you of these neuroticisms and these behaviors and I was a teenager. And so a child in that position of being told this over and over and over and over again, which I'm certain he was, stood no chance. She also, because of what the abuse and torturing that was going on, and the belief that she had that I was doing something more. So her rationale to the severity of these punishments and this physical and emotional abuse was she wanted to make my life, and this is like her quote, like this is what she would tell me all of the time. She wanted to make my life so uncomfortable that it would force the sin out, that it would force me to confess. So things continuously got worse and worse and progressively more and more intense as a way to get me to confess, because she believed that if I had confessed everything, if all of my sins were out and in the open, that I would be getting better. And I was declining like very fast, exponentially.
Like forcing people to just confess to things, that they're not addicted to or that they are not, just to get it out there, until the point where it becomes then a coping mechanism to just say, okay, yes, I'm all those things, which I do wonder if Kevin Franke went through the same type of thing or not. And especially the kids, I really hope that they're going to be okay, that they haven't absorbed all of that, because even based on that journal, they were certainly telling the kids that they are evil, that they have cold hearts, that they are sinners and liars, and that they emulate snakes and all kinds of things, So when the little boy escaped the house and went to ask for help, the way that he was blaming himself when they said, well, what's with the duct tape? He's like, personal business, and he was explaining that it's his fault. It's all his fault. Shame, man. My goodness. It's going to take some time to rewire all of that,
Eventually. And so she just kept ramping it up. And so to hear Ruby tell the world that her child is a sex addict, a predator, and has been addicted to porn since he was 3 years old, it just echoes exactly the things that she was telling me and telling everyone around me. And I know that I think I don't know if I got this right, but I'm pretty sure that she's saying that he even confessed to it. Well, I also confessed to things that I didn't do as a way of trying to get the abuse to stop. Because when she's
like,
it's like,
for Ruby Franke to say in court at a hearing before she was sentenced that her son was watching PORN when he was 3 years old. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, okay? Where are the parents in the room? Good question. How? Where would the child be getting access to it? Why would the child be interested in it? It's just nonsense. It's just horrific, I don't know, projection or something. It's just terrible. And Noni says Ruby was probably addicted to. Maybe. Who knows? Or Jodi. I don't know what's going on here, but it's terrible to do that to children. Sure.
Drilling it into you both psychologically and physically that there's more, and it will stop once you tell her Because that's what she would tell you. Like in the middle of the abuse, she'd be like, I'll stop as soon as you tell me. As soon as you tell me what's going on, like what you did. Oh, she was also convinced that I had abortions. She was convinced she made me do 12-step because she was convinced I was an addict, like a drug addict as well. I'd never done drugs. I'd never had sex. Again, I didn't know that masturbation was even possible. I had no idea what these things were. So I just started making things up as a way, as like trying to get this to stop, because I had no one there to help me and to save me. And I think I even said that on the podcast, that I was making things up. And when I spoke to the detective down in St. George days ago, I told her that as well. It's like and so even if he had confessed, it cannot be taken seriously, because this child was being tortured. And I'm certain that she echoed those words of like, if you tell me, I will stop.
Shame. Andrea says, question, does Jodi have children? She was married in the 90s, allegedly to a doctor, which people on Reddit, so take that just with a grain of salt, speculate is how she got a lot of initial finances from that divorce or something, but she had 2 children. And both children want nothing to do with her, from what I've read. She's estranged from her children. So that makes sense, right? We're starting to learn a lot more. Also, Jessi has done multiple interviews. So if you do go on YouTube, which you're on now, and you search later for more of her interviews, of their interviews, you will be able to find it.
So what is happening, it just echoes so close to home of what she did to me. And the repercussions, the emotional and physical repercussions of those actions, like the fact that she can, because the thing that's so sinister about this is that it can't be disproven. So even if like she goes to prison, his name is cleared, it will never be fully cleared because it cannot be disproven. So this is going to potentially follow him for the rest of his life. So even with those children being taken out of her care, she is still abusing them. And so with whatever is happening, whatever did happen, I can guarantee you it's not what she's saying.
Her business, Connections Classroom, is this the same approach she uses for all of her patients as well that are not family or not Ruby's kids, as far as you know?
I don't know the intricacies of what she promotes and what she teaches on Connections Classroom. If it's anything even close, then, I'm certain that there's going to be parallels. I know that she believes that all shame should be punished. And I know that I wouldn't be surprised. I really don't know. I've stayed away as much as possible from her and her world, to just heal and to try to salvage any life that I could possibly live, post living with her.
We have about 8 minutes left of this interview. I just find it so interesting. I wanted to share it with you just so that you have a little bit of more backstory of just how cruel Jodi Hildebrandt can be. And of course, she was Ruby Franke's friend, therapist, business partner, whatever. All of that influence, I don't know. The two of them were just really a match made in hell. And they severely abused Ruby's children. Also, Deb says, when is the sentencing? The sentencing took place on February 20th this year. So, today's date is what? March 25th. So over a month ago. But we're going to watch it together so that we can see that sentencing, and then we could see, how they talk and what they say, and just finally have a little bit of, that feeling where you're like, yes, cuff them, lock them up. There was no trial because they took a deal, right? They took a plea deal, both of them. So they have been sentenced to serve between 4 and up to 30 years in prison. Okay.
With that said, it sounds like this wasn't really a secret, though. Obviously, you knew about these teachings. Other people in her family, probably both families I've been hearing, knew about some of these practices or had heard of. Why do you think it took to 2023 for a child to escape, go to a neighbor's house, call 911, and now this is a thing? Like, why did it take this long?
I think it's a combination of quite a few things. One, the church supports her. She's been promoted by the church, and people trust the church. Members trust their bishops. They trust their stake presidents. And a lot of these people, most people that are going to therapy, if not all, are in a vulnerable position. And she is remarkably convincing. She is also terrifying if you cross her, because she has and will systematically destroy your life. She destroys your reputation. She destroys any of your credibility. So even because there are definitely people that have been speaking out against her. I mean, she lost her license because of someone speaking out in 2012. Like, she's not just, everyone's not just been like, okay, yeah, for sure, fair game, free for all. People have been criticizing her. That's just that no one has listened. Because one, we have a culture of people not believing children and not trusting children. And also children trust their parents, and then the parents trust the church. So there's been, and Jodi, what she does that's so tricky is that she utilizes and uses whatever is available. So if you go to her with OCD, if you go to her with severe depression, she'll use that information as a way of control. Oh, you have OCD because you have deep-rooted shame. And those tics are happening because the shame has nowhere to go. And so it's coming out in this neuroticism. And then, or let's say like, you told her that you lied, which is a normal human thing that we've all done. That doesn't make you a liar. Oh, well, you lied. You're a liar. Now, everything you say is a lie and you can't be trusted. And she also separates people. She keeps people so they can't talk and corroborate. Like, it is so vile and tricky and ingenious. Like, Jodi is, she is a very unwell person. I don't know her exact diagnoses, but I know that she's been diagnosed with a plethora of things.
It makes sense. She does seem like someone really unwell, very dark, very sadistic. Wow. And I just worry about how many other victims are there of Jodi Hildebrandt?
And yeah, so it's devastating because I went forward as well. I mean, I went to the police when I was 16. I tried to do what I could, and no one believed me, because why would they? She destroyed my credibility. I was an angry teenager, and now I'm just you're just like an emotional, angry teenager and she had told people that I destroyed my family's life, that I destroyed my dad's life, that every person I come in contact, I destroy. So she sets up the premise. And then when I come forward and try to tell people, like, this is what's happening, she can be like, oh, see, Jessi's trying to destroy my life is what they do. It just all adds up. So she's so good at protecting those loopholes and discrediting people.
Is that why you think maybe other members of both families still won't speak out publicly about this right now and are staying quiet? Or do you think it's a fear thing or just want to stay out of it? Is there any thought process on that?
I can't speak to why people aren't. I know the culture of my family. I think that it's probably probably a number of things. Some people, I think it's just that they themselves have been harmed so much by her, and they want to stay. They just want to live their life and not be dragged into this. Other members, it could be fear. I can't say. All I can say, and again, the only reason why I'm coming forward, I was not planning on coming forward to the media other than just doing the podcast interview, is when I heard that Ruby accused her child of this, and I just hope that this can give the public some context and some clarity of what is happening and why they should not believe her.
So 6 charges of aggravated child abuse. That's what's on the table. I'm sure you're not a legal expert. I'm not either, but I've talked to a number of attorneys just kind of about this case, more about the hype of the case, because it's obviously gotten a ton of attention because of Ruby's profile, right? Because of the high profile aspect of the YouTube channel. And that's why I think it's interesting we're talking about Jodi, because Ruby's got, as you mentioned, is getting the spotlight in a weird way. And Jodi, as you mentioned, is behind a lot of the tactics. Do you feel like 6 felony charges, I mean, in your mind, is that enough punishment for what is alleged against them?
I mean, let me know in chat as well what you guys think. Do you think that Jodi Hildebrandt should serve longer than Ruby Franke, or not? Like, I wonder what you guys think. I think they should just both be in there. LWAP would be great.
I mean, I don't think that it's the full scope. I mean, including my own child abuse that I experienced. I mean, I want justice, and I want fair justice. So I want everything that she has done, that both of them have done, to be held accountable. Whether that be 6, 12, 18, however many. I just want to see that she is held accountable for the things that she has done. Because but I personally believe that that is not covering everything that she's done. And I can say that because I know that she's not being held accountable for what she did to me in the legal system. I mean,
How closely are you following this? Are you looking every day to see if there's something new that's put out? I mean, where is your mindset at with the case, so to speak?
yeah, I'm not following it every single day. I'm trying to navigate just my own emotional safety in all of this. I'm trying to stay up to date. I have people that have sent me things that like feel a little bit more safe in being more aware of what's going on. And so like when something big does come out, like with Ruby's accusations, I had someone sent that to me. And I was sitting in the parking lot of Lowe's and I started having a panic attack because it was just so directly similar. I mean, the exact thing. This is exactly what she does. This is what Jodi does. And so now, because she's painted him as this thing, regardless of what comes out, like he's no longer, I mean, I think hopefully the public can see through this and the judge can see through this. But that's the goal, is so that anything that he says is now no longer credible.
What do you think the public will ultimately take away from these two as it pertains to the court proceedings and such?
I mean, I just hope that Jodi is not sidelined in this, because she is so connected to what is happening. And yes, Ruby needs to be held accountable because she made those choices. She's just as guilty. But Jodi's been doing this for much longer and has patterns and history in this. So I just really, really hope that, yes, Ruby is the focus because of her high profile and because they're her children. But those children were, as far as I'm aware, I hope I got this right, were in Jodi's care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this isn't.
But Ruby was there too. Because when I read, there's so many documents and things in this case that have come out now. When I read some of the police reports, they said that when they asked the little boy, who put this duct tape on you? Who put this cayenne pepper and honey mix? He said his mom. He said it was his mom.
I just so hope that even though Ruby's the focus, I just hope that Jodi is not, that she's not able to slink away and just kind of fade into the background, because she is the fact.
And then right here, the interview just stops. Okay, so that's the end of this interview. Now let me go and fetch the sentencing for us. Hold on 1 second. Thank you all for being here. Okay, we're gonna fetch the sentencing. Here we go. Actually, I should boost it for us. There we go. So this was from February 20th of this year. February 20th of 2024. Okay. And thank you to everyone who emailed this to me at the time. At the time, I hadn't really spoken publicly about the case. So I was like, well, it'll be weird to just be like sentencing, you know, but I did watch and wow. Okay, so let's watch this together.
Same telephone session. John Fay Walton presiding. You may be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to District Court. We're here for sentencing in the matter of State of Utah versus Ruby Franke. Ms. Franke is here with Mr. Windward. Mr. Clark and Mr. Sham are here for the State of Utah. And we are ready to proceed with sentencing.
We are. Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, the terms of the sentence were...
Like, how is her makeup kind of done and her hair is all done? Oh my goodness, it really reminds me of Lori Vallow Daybell. Also, Johnny Desant said they're going to spread their madness in prison too. Oh no, they probably are going to spread their madness in prison too. And Jippity Bippity said Jessi actually posted a little earlier today on their Instagram that they are emotionally at capacity with all of the Jodi news. They want the public to see it, but they need some grace and space right now. Send love. Shame. Yeah, I can imagine. It must be really triggering, right?
Agreed to as part of the plea agreement, correct?
That is correct.
There is a pre-sentence investigation report in the matter. I have reviewed that. Everyone has seen it.
Yes.
What about restitution, counsel, before we move on with other matters?
We'd like to leave that open at this time, Your Honor. I can get into that. I might be more comfortable if we approach to get into that.
Is there an agreement that restitution, that we reserve that and for what period of time?
8 months is what we're anticipating. But I haven't talked to the defendant's counsel about that.
We haven't discussed that, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No.
All right. What's the state's position regarding sentencing?
Your Honor, the state, I'll stand up. The state respectfully requests that the court sentence Ms. Franke to consecutive prison terms for each of the 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. This sentence was agreed to by Ms. Franke in her plea agreement and is also recommended by adult probation and parole. She committed horrible acts of child abuse. From May to August in 2023, Ms. Franke and her business partner held her 2 children, ages 9 and 11, turning 12, in a concentration camp-like setting. The children were regularly denied food, water, beds to sleep in, and virtually all forms of entertainment. They were isolated from others and were hidden when people came to visit the house where the children and the defendants were staying. The children were forced to do physical tasks like carrying loaded boxes up and down stairs and wall sits or sitting against a wall without a chair or a stool for hours at a time. The sentence was agreed to by Ms. Franke in her plea agreement and is also recommended by adult probation and parole. She committed horrible acts of child abuse. From May to August in 2023, Ms. Franke and her business partner held her 2 children, ages 9 and 11, turning 12, in a concentration camp-like setting. The children were regularly denied food, water, beds to sleep in, and virtually all forms of entertainment. They were isolated from others and were hidden when people came to visit the house where the children and the defendants were staying. The children were forced.
The footage does do that from the court feed. It just like skipped and then it just repeated some of what he said. Also, the little girl who was in that closet, also when I was reading those documents and everything today, then they said that her ankles also had like bruises and things on it, you know, terrible.
To do physical tasks like carrying loaded boxes up and down stairs and wall sits or sitting against a wall without a chair or a stool for hours at a time. They were also forced to do manual labor outdoors in the extreme summer heat, at times without shoes or socks. They were forced to stand outside on a cement patio in the summer heat for hours and even days at a time. They were beaten, and the 12-year-old was regularly bound hand and foot after he attempted to run away in mid-July. Both children had extensive physical injuries from the abuse that required hospitalization when they were found. The injuries from the binding to the 12-year-old are particularly awful. In addition to physical abuse, the children were emotionally abused to the extent that each believed, to some degree, that they deserved what was being done to them. Had the older of the children not had the courage to run away and ask a neighbor to call the police, heaven only knows how much longer he could have survived in that situation. After being caught, Ms. Franke has shown considerable remorse, as evidenced by agreeing to serve consecutive prison terms and being willing to cooperate with the state against Ms. Hildebrandt. However,
I wonder if that remorse is real. Some people think it is. I wonder. I don't know. Did her eyes open like, oh my word, I was being so controlled by this woman and influenced? I don't know, man. Those are her children. She did that. She wrote those horrible things. She journaled, you know, writing down all the punishments and things. It's just absolutely terrible. And we're going to watch a little post-sentencing, you know, like a little press conference that they had after this, where the prosecutor also speaks, and he actually says that the little boy was hogtied. I mean, it just gets worse and worse. The more details you learn about this case, just the worse it gets.
given the severity of the abuse she inflicted, consecutive terms are appropriate in this case. As the court's aware, Section 76-3401 lays out factors the court takes into account in determining whether consecutive or concurrent sentences should be imposed. Those factors are the gravity and circumstances of the offense, the number of victims, and the history, character, and rehabilitative needs of the defendant. As agreed to in the plea agreement and as recommended by adult probation and parole, consecutive sentences are appropriate. This is due to the severity of the abuse to both victims. It could be argued that Ms. Franke should receive a lesser sentence than Ms. Hildebrandt because of her remorse and willingness to cooperate with the state. However, the Board of Pardons and Parole will have broad latitude and will be able to take those facts into account when it determines how long each of the co-defendants will remain incarcerated. In conclusion, we respectfully request that the court go along with what was agreed to in the plea agreement and is recommended by adult probation and parole and impose consecutive sentences.
Thank you. Anything else from the state?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Windward?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. In my few comments this morning, and in the comments my client wishes to make in a few minutes, we are not suggesting, nor are we asking that the court deviate from the stipulated sentence contained in the written plea agreement. I want the court to know that through introspection and reflection, Ruby Franke has become a serious student of her own actions. In the very early days of my involvement with Ruby, she was somewhat defensive, and she was still very much indoctrinated into a philosophy that was destructive. Fortunately, Ruby came to the stark realization of the errors in her thinking patterns and subsequent actions. To say that she was horrified by this realization would be to put it mildly. I have marveled.
Marveled? I had to pause it there. Let's just be careful now with marveling at anything that this one does. She's like, yeah, you say all those words. If anyone's confused, this sentencing, I've got the date right up there on the banner. It was from February 20th of 2024. We're not like live right now with sentencing. We're watching it because now we've been covering this case and I want to show you, I want us to watch the sentencing together. So even if you've seen it, thank you for being here because, you know, when we watch trials together, most of us, we can't wait for the sentencing phase, right? And so there was no trial for this, but there was sentencing. So now we're watching it together, right? Paula says remorse is easy once you get caught. Hope she is truly remorseful. Thank you so much, Cass.
And how quickly Ruby abandoned her defensive stance and moved toward her total acceptance of her actions and to her sentence today. So far, she has used her time in jail to unwrap the layers upon layers of deceit and deception foisted upon her over the last 4 years by an unscrupulous individual. Ruby realizes that she still has work to do in shedding those thinking errors and to reestablish a better and correct pattern of thinking and behavior. Ruby realizes that changing her thinking, reestablishing relationships, and healing are not simple or easy tasks. However, she is committed to doing that work. I would like the court to know that Ruby Franke is a delightful, respectful, and responsible person. She is open to feedback and addressing the consequences of her actions head on.
Delightful, respectful, responsible, abusive.
And now ready to address your honor and accept your judgment. Thank you, Judge Walton.
Thank you. Ms. Franke has a statement she'd like to make.
She does.
Judge Walton.
You don't have to bend down.
Okay, thank you. I would like to make a statement without any intent to change my stipulated sentence. For the past 4 years, I've chosen to follow counsel and guidance that has led me into a dark delusion. My distorted version of reality went largely unchecked as I would isolate from anyone who challenged me. I was led to believe that this world was an evil place, filled with cops who control, hospitals that injure, government agencies that brainwash, church leaders who lie and lust, husbands who refuse to protect, and children who need abused.
Okay then. And children who need abused. So the sentence doesn't make that much sense. But you believed, I mean, all those things, but then also the children just, they need to be abused. I mean, no. I'm just like, what? Oh my goodness.
My choice to believe and behave this paranoia culminated into criminal activity for which I stand before you today ready to take accountability. Jodi Hildebrandt was never my business partner, nor was I ever employed by her. I have never received wages from her or connections. Jodi was employed as my son's counselor in 2019, and in 2020, I paid her to be my mentor.
Okay, so she wasn't your business partner. You you paid her though. Whoa, paid her to be in their life. Damn. Oh my goodness.
It is important to me to demonstrate my remorse and regret without blame. I take full accountability for my choices, and it is my preference that I serve a prison sentence. Thank you to the officer.
Let me tell you something. She just wants to be in control. You know? She just wants to be in control, just like Jodi, because she's like, it's my preference to serve a prison sentence. Like, you don't have a choice in this matter. It's not your preference. You took this plea deal because you were probably worried about what else was going to come out. You might have had LWOP if this went to trial. Right? So it's like, ooh, okay, I'll plead. And then she got, she had to plead guilty to the 4 charges. They dropped 2 of them. Okay, so now it's 4 up to 30 years. Wow, but she's like, it's my preference. Okay, wow.
In Santa Clara and the Ivan City Police, Nick Hellman, Brian Palufo, Cy Pikyavit, Mike Pondoyo in Tobler, John Ward, D. Lewis, and Chief Flowers. You were the angels who came and saved my children.
And you were the devil in that context. That's what I'm saying. You were the angels that came to save my children. And you were the devil that abused them. You were the one that put cayenne pepper on open wounds. You were the one that said your children are evil, that you can't believe at 12 years old, they still poop their pants, like what's wrong with them, that they resemble snakes, that they lie, that they're just worthless, basically. You. I'm not buying this. I'm not buying it. Oh, she's making me so angry. Oh my goodness.
I especially want to thank Detective Jay Bate. She plucked me out of a situation I didn't know how to get out of. And the moment she handcuffed me was the moment I gained my freedom.
Oh my word.
You were not.
Sorry. Sorry for all the pausing. If you want to watch it, I mean, it's from a month ago. Okay, it's already out there. You could watch it without my interruptions here. KT Recover said, if she was actually brainwashed, being unindoctrinated from here, dark delusion from her dark delusion will prove itself over time. Makes me think of the Manson girls. You know what was interesting with her wording was, I isolated myself. I was defensive when people challenged me. So she didn't say Jodi Hildebrandt came into my life and she isolated me and she threatened me, and it's amazing how she says I isolated. And all of this saying, thank you for saving my children. Her and Jodi were planning to buy a property out in the desert, even more isolated. And she said, we're going to drop the kids off in the desert like hot potatoes so they can do even more labor in the blazing sun. They probably would have died. That's a scary thought. And then what?
Not the controlling ones. I was. Thank you to the medical staff at Intermountain Hospital. Your skill, tenderness, and professionalism helped heal my children. Jodi and I inflicted the injuries, not the hospital. Thank you to DCFS, the Children's Justice Center, Judge Basil, and other key adults. You've gathered my children under your wing and offered them love, compassion, encouragement. You were not the ones who were doing the brainwashing. Thank you to my Bishop Tom Hawks and my state president, Jim Nelson, for reminding.
You're still thanking your bishop? The one that recommended Jodi's services. The one that came over to the house to, be the exorcist before your husband became the resident exorcist. And also, yes, remember how Kevin Franke in his interview said, he said, Ruby invited me to leave. They got some weird words. It's like backwards, right? She invited me to leave, not asked me to leave or requested I leave. She invited me to leave. Here as well, she's like, it's my preference to serve a prison sentence. Yeah, okay.
Reminding me of the Lord's love for the lost. So much pain and suffering would have been avoided had I followed and heeded your counsel. I was the one who was deceived, not you. Thank you to the Washington County Prosecutor's Office, Ryan Sham, the legal assistants and discovery clerks. Eric Clark, you exemplified to me how justice and mercy are meant to coexist. My charges are just. They offer safety to my family, accountability to the public, and they did show mercy to me. Thank you to my attorney, Lamar Winward, and his staff. I would not be where I am today without them. Thank you to Randy Kester for your limitless energy in healing my family. My dear friends, Pam and Roy, I'm so sorry for letting you down.
Dear friends, Pam, who was part of Connections, the one you had interventions with, for 5 hours at a time, and then you all came down, apparently on cloud 9 after those interventions. Okay, you want to thank Pam, the one that put your kids to work. The 2 teenagers were found at Pam's house. She was the president of Connections. Thank you. And why is she thanking everyone? Like, what is this? What kind of statement is this? It's almost worse than Lori Vallow-Daybaugh's, but really, Lori Vallow-Daybaugh's, wow, that was bad. Whoa, when she was talking about, her kids being busy in another realm. Whew, won't forget that. Okay, let's continue here.
Because of your association with me, your innocence was called into question. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, Kevin's family, my cousins, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and neighbors, you all saw the warning signs long before I did, and you did what you could. You wanted to help, but I pushed you away. My mother and father, I have been utterly wretched to you. You have offered me unconditional love, and for that I have offered you unconditional contempt. My siblings and their spouses, because of my decision to roll around in a pigsty, I've drug your families through the mud in public.
Oh, rolling around in a pigsty, are we? Pernille says, me, myself, and I. Yes, and she's going to say, probably like Lori, this is just a misunderstanding. It's all part of the plan. This is what happens, when you do God's work, especially their version of it. It's just what happens. It's part of the plan, okay? It's part of her healing. It was all meant to be. Everything happens for a reason, right? No. Una says, I just can't. And the Oscar goes to... right.
Yet, when I desired to return as the prodigal sister, unlike the prodigal's brother in the Bible, you synced step with my parents and ran out to greet me. Your capacity to love is unprecedented. Kevin, my husband of more than 23 years, you are the love of my life. I'm so sorry to leave to you to finish what we both started together. The ending of our marriage is a tragedy, and you are wrapped around my heart in a knot I'll never be able to undo.
Don't worry, he's probably not going anyway. He's still just as in love as you by the sounds of it.
To my babies, my 6 little chicks, you are part of me. I was the mama duck who was consistently waddling you to safety.
No. I was the mama duck who was consistently waddling you to safety. She just said that. Can you believe it? Like, how delusional is she still? How can she say that? Are you trying to gaslight people still? So let's just compliment and charm the crap out of people, because that works for manipulators, right? It's the tactic. It's just like, I'm going to be so charming and thank everyone and be just so grateful. And then after that, I'm going to say I was the mama duck waddling all my children consistently to safety. No, you weren't. You were like the freaking, I don't even know what to call her. It would be an insult to any animal I name. You were the creature The spineless parasite that abused your children.
I can see now that over the past 4 years, I was in a deep undercurrent that led us to danger. I would never have led you to darkness knowingly. I was so disoriented that I believed dark was light and right was wrong. I would do anything in this world for you. My willingness to sacrifice all for you was masterfully manipulated into something very ugly. I took from you all that was soft and safe and good. I took from you your mother. How terrifying this must have been for you. I will never stop crying for hurting your tender souls. You are each so precious to me. I'm sorry. My choice.
You were like so precious to me that I just saw money when I looked at you. I was just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and roll the cameras. Even when they were uncomfortable. In fact, she seemed to like capturing them on camera when they were uncomfortable. That was the clout that she was getting. That's where she made the multi-millions of dollars. That's what the sponsors were also paying for, which you guys wonder why I don't do sponsors. Who the heck are the sponsors sponsoring? Have you ever seen a sponsor on my channel? Oh, hell no. No, thank you. No. Who are you? Why are you sponsoring this channel that was exploiting your children in plain sight? People were actually complaining about it. There was a petition for it. Like, what is happening here? And all those family channels. They make multi-millions of dollars from sponsorships. Gross. And she was just like, she's making as if it was only this little chapter. There's a problem. No, from 2015 when you launched your channel, you exploited the crap out of your children and embarrassed them. You abused them on camera. Like, what the hell? My goodness. Don't lie, lady. Oh, you're not fooling us.
To live in fear of the world has created a great vulnerability and a blind spot for me, where I have broken hearts and I've caused people to suffer and I have betrayed sacred trust. Watching my community respond to my charges with justice and mercy and grace and love is all the more evidence to me of how wrong I've been. This world is full of really good people. And finally, I'm sorry for twisting God's word and distorting his doctrines. My greatest desire is to stand in his court someday spotless and confident. And Judge Walton, I know that standing before you today is a necessary step towards that end. Thank you to you and your staff.
Spotless and confident. Okay.
For facilitating my opportunity to take accountability and to answer for my charges. I am humbled and willing to serve a prison sentence as long as it takes to continue unraveling all of the misinformation I have believed and bought, swallowed, and acted out, and for my family to heal and for the community to heal. And I understand this is going to take time. I'm committed to continuing my learning until all of my toxic layers are shed and I am ready to re-enter as a contributing member of our beautiful society.
Toxic, another word just for abusive. Wait, until all your abusive layers are shit. No, that's not going to happen.
Thank you, Judge Walton.
Thank you.
Keep her away from the
Ms.
kids.
Franke, anything else, Mr. Windward?
No, Your Honor.
Anything else prior to the court imposing sentence?
No, Your Honor.
The sentence will be that Ms. Franke serve 4 counts, 4 1 to 15-year sentences based on her convictions for 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. Again, they will be served consecutively pursuant to the parties' agreement and the applicable statute. Under the applicable statute, the court finds that that consecutive sentences are appropriate. Ms. Franke, the last thing I do need to tell you is that you have only 30 days to file or to perfect an appeal of any errors of the court by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the court. If you don't do that within 30 days, you will lose your right to appeal. You also have the right to the assistance of an attorney on appeal and to have one appointed if you cannot afford to hire your own. Restitution, as agreed by the parties, will remain open for a period of 8 months. Any of the parties can bring that matter back before the court within that period of time. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next matter before the court is State of Utah versus Hildebrandt, case 231501763.
There, I skipped, sorry. I lost our place now. It was here, there's a recess, short recess, wait, and then Jodi walks into court. Oh man, isn't this just snark-worthy? Get out of here. I mean, sure, I was reading some frightening things. Like, when will they first meet with the parole board? Apparently after about a year to plan for what if, are they maybe thinking of releasing them after 4 years? I really hope not. Think about everything, the totality of it all. Kittens in Clover says she's sick. Definitely whack. I know, right? Okay, so now it's going to be Jodi Hildebrandt's sentencing. Okay, so if you missed it now, Hannah says, what was her sentence? It was on 4 charges, and she will serve between 4 and up to, a minimum of 4 and up to 30 years in prison. That's the maximum you can serve for these charges in Utah. So 4 up to 30. And all of the charges, that's them collectively. All the charges, the 4, will be served consecutively, so not concurrently. Thank goodness, otherwise she would have been in for like maybe a year or something, you know. So they say it's a minimum of 4, a maximum of 30. Okay, so now they say Jodi Hildebrandt enters the court. Here she comes.
All rise.
Also take note that Jodi Hildebrandt decided to also take the same plea deal because she realized, oh crap, as part of Ruby's plea deal, it was to testify against Jodi Hildebrandt. So Jodi was like, no, I'm also going to take that deal. I'm also going to. I wish they didn't offer them these deals.
Court is back in session. You may be seated.
Court recalls the matter of State of Utah versus Hildebrandt, case 231501763. Counsel are present. Ms. Hildebrandt is present. Counsel, there is a pre-sentence investigation report. I have read it.
Also, it's up to the parole board to determine how long they'll actually each serve. Ooh, I hope it's a parole board that's a lot more strict than Kayla Montgomery's one. Right? Okay.
Everyone has seen and reviewed that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Again, the sentence was stipulated at the time of the plea agreement. What record do we need to make other than going forward with sentencing?
Okay, just stand by. I can see people are confused. So each charge, because there was 6 counts of aggravated child abuse, right? YouTube just loves all those phrases. They're like, that's it. Anyway, so there were 6 counts. With this plea deal, they dropped 2 and they were charged with 4. They pleaded guilty to the 4. Now, each of those would be a sentence of 1 to 15 years. But in Utah, in the state of Utah, the maximum sentence for these charges can only be 30 total. So that is why if you take 1 year times 4, it's a minimum of 4 years. It should be a maximum of 60, but then the law says it's a maximum of 30. So it's 4, minimum of 4, maximum of 30 years. And the parole board is going to decide how long each one of these creatures is going to serve.
Your Honor, it would be repetitive. I had the same statement just with the last few paragraphs where I was differentiating between Ms. Franke and Ms. Hildebrandt.
Okay, let's talk about housekeeping matters first. What about restitution?
And we've stipulated to keep that open for 8 months.
It is appropriate, Your Honor, since we don't have any evidence with respect to restitution, and that's because it is still in the process of being gathered by the county attorney's office. It's completely appropriate for the court to make no orders with respect to restitution other than to reserve all issues regarding restitution, and we have no issue with the 8th.
I'm just going to pause here. Sorry, I just want to take this comment off. Thank you, Thunder Snow. Someone had emailed me and pointed out that, you know how Kevin Franke had said that Jodi Hildebrandt always wore like long sleeves and hoodies and she smelled bad and all of that. And that Ruby Franke had said that her arms are just completely mutilated from self-harm. Well, someone was pointing out that you don't see that here, but I wonder if it's on the other side of her arm. I don't know, but I did take a close look and I'm like, where? But yeah, you could see, because the way that Kevin Franke said was like her entire arms, from what Ruby told her, are quite hectic. But I would speculate maybe it's on her forearm or whatever, right? Kittens in Clover says Jodi is a total manipulator. Evil. Okay, let's hear it.
8-month time frame.
And the injunction that was previously issued by the court will remain in effect?
It will.
At least until that time?
It will remain in effect until further order of this court.
All right. Mr. Clark?
Thanks, Your Honor. The state of Utah respectfully requests that the court sentence Ms. Hildebrandt to consecutive prison terms for each of the 4 counts of aggravated child abuse to which she has pleaded guilty. The sentence was agreed to her in her plea agreement and is also recommended by adult probation and parole. Ms. Hildebrandt committed awful acts of child abuse. From May to August 2023, she and her business partner held 2 children, ages 9 and 11, turning 12, in a concentration camp-like setting in her house in Ivan City. The children were regularly denied food, water, beds to sleep in, and virtually all forms of entertainment. They were isolated from others and were hidden when people came to visit the house. They were forced to do physical tasks like carrying loaded boxes up and down stairs and doing wall sits or sitting against a wall without assistance of a chair or stool for hours at a time. They were forced to do manual labor outdoors in the extreme summer heat, often without shoes or socks. They were also forced to stand outside on a cement patio in the summer heat for hours and even days. They were beaten, and the 12-year-old was regularly bound hand and foot after he attempted to run away in mid-July. Both children had extensive physical injuries from the abuse that required hospitalization to treat. The injuries from the binding are particularly bad. In addition to the physical abuse, the children were emotionally abused. They each believed to some degree that they deserved what was being done to them. Had the older of the 2 children not had the courage to run away and ask a neighbor to call the police, heaven only knows how much longer he could have survived. After being caught, Ms. Hildebrandt has shown little to no remorse for her actions. In telephone conversations that will be provided in full to the Board of Pardons and Parole, and which she knew to be recorded, she's repeatedly claimed that she is the victim and the children are the perpetrators. She has gone so far as to say that the things said in this proceeding and covered by the media today will be full of lies. The combination of 3 factors make Ms. Hildebrandt a significant threat to the community. First, the severity of the abuse she caused to be inflicted on young children. Second, her attitude that everything she did was justified and that she is being wrongfully imprisoned. And third, her training as a therapist and aptitude for using online resources to convince others to follow her guidance. Utah Code Section 76-3-401 lays out 3 factors the court should consider in determining whether to impose concurrent or consecutive sentences. The first is the gravity and circumstances of the offense. The second is the number of victims. And the third is the history, character, and rehabilitative need of the defendant. As agreed to in the plea agreement and as recommended by adult probation and parole, consecutive sentences are appropriate here. This is due to the severity of the abuse to the 2 victims and the extreme need for Ms. Hildebrandt to be rehabilitated so that she no longer will present a risk to the community. The state respectfully requests that she be sentenced to 4 consecutive terms.
I think this one is a big risk. And what if she can operate her cult vision from inside the prison? I worry about that. Or recruit. She's very, wait, how did Jessi say it? She's something like remarkably influential or convincing. This one is the brightest red flag in the room. I think this one should have the maximum sentence possible. She's incredibly dangerous and has likely ruined many lives with her plans. And I think she had a plan to start a cult officially. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Terry?
Thank you, Your Honor. I will be brief. As is always the case in cases that come before courts, there are two sides to every case. And and even in a case like this, that remains the case. There are many allegations regarding these two individuals, Ms. Franke and my client, Ms. Hildebrandt. The only facts in this case that are adjudicated facts are those set forth in the plea agreement that she entered into freely and knowingly and voluntarily. Those facts, those adjudicated facts, are significant. They certainly provide a basis for the pleas and provide a basis for the stipulated sentence in this case. My experience with Ms. Hildebrandt is that she is not the person that she has been portrayed to be. But having said that, she has accepted responsibility in this case. She has entered into this plea agreement with a stipulated sentence of 4 consecutive sentences. She did that at the time she entered into the plea agreement, knowing that that would be the court's order. She is before the court today, knowing that that will be the court's order, and
she's actually got a very, like, I feel terrified when I look at her, just the way that she is. Knowing what she did, now with that backstory, and we don't even know everything. Just the way that she sits there and just looks with that, like, blank face. It's really unnerving. Isn't it scary? Oh, my word. Yeah, I know. This one scares me a lot.
She fully accepts that. She accepts responsibility and she accepts the consequences for her conduct. And we will submit it to the court on the stipulated agreement.
Mr. Terry, you suggested that there are two sides to every case. I generally agree with you. Ms. Hildebrandt didn't make a statement to AP&P in the course of the pre-sentence investigation report.
Correct.
Why did she not make a statement?
She wanted to reserve her right to make a statement before the court today, and she has a brief statement that she wants to read, Your Honor.
Okay.
And
all right. Ms. Hildebrandt?
No. Sorry. Damn it. Every time I want to just pause it, then it just clicks back. Sorry about that. Just hold on 1 second. Jodi walks into court. Prosecutor statement. Sorry. Jodi and her lawyer's statements. Ugh. Sorry. Skipped a bit there. Shauna is asking, do I know if Ruby and Jodi are in the same prison? I don't know, but I have seen people in chat say so. That must be interesting. Like, how does that work? I would like confirmation of that. Are they in the same prison? I think so, because they're here together on this day. Damn, that must be awkward. Do they keep them separate or what? How does that work? Okay, so let's just try catch up.
Plea agreement that she entered into freely and knowingly and voluntarily. Those facts, those adjudicated facts, are significant. They certainly provide a basis for the pleas and provide a basis for the stipulated sentence in this case. My experience with conduct, and we will submit it to the court on the stipulated agreement.
Mr. Terry, you suggested that there are two sides to every case. I generally agree with you. Ms. Hildebrandt didn't make a statement to AP&P in the course of the pre-sentence investigation report.
Correct.
Why did she not make a statement.
She wanted to
Is she going to make a statement? I think so. So they say, if you, Uncle Google says former family YouTuber, exploiter, Ruby Franke and her business partner, also a therapist, Jodi Hildebrandt, were transferred to the Utah State Correctional Facility. So apparently they're both there. Oh, my word.
to reserve her right to make a statement before the court today, and she has a brief statement that she wants to read, Your Honor.
Okay.
And
All right. Ms. Hildebrandt? Go ahead.
I sincerely love these children. I desire for them to heal physically and emotionally.
Oh, shut up. I sincerely love these children. Shut up. We've heard you on your, if you haven't, you guys. I know we haven't played all the clips, but there are clips out there of her teaching, being like, welcome to Connections. I'm so happy to have you here. Like, it was just, she doesn't talk like this. We've never seen her talk like this. What a put on. I sincerely loved, did she say love? Love. I think she said present tense. Love these children. No, you don't. You abuse the crap out of them. They're not your children. It wasn't your house. It wasn't your family. Get away from children forever. My word.
One of the reasons I did not go to trial is that I did not want them to emotionally relive the experience which would have been detrimental to them.
No. You decided to just go to prison and not to trial because you were crapping your pants about how Ruby was going to testify against you. When she heard that, I saw that on that, I think it was on that 2020 documentary. When she heard, oh my word, like Jodi's going to testify against me. No, that's it. Take the deal. I take the deal. Yeah. Give me prison time. Yeah. Oh, to save the children from going through it again. You liar. My word.
My hope and prayer is that they will heal and move forward to have beautiful lives. I am willing to submit to what the state feels would be an appropriate amount of time served to make retribution as an outcome.
And in answer to your question, Your Honor, I knew that whatever she might say to the author of the pre-sentence report would probably sound hollow and self-serving, and perhaps it does today. But I know that my client, in the statement that she makes to the court today, that statement is absolutely sincere.
Dude, I'm going to say it to him as well. Shut up. You guys are going to be like, what? No, how can you vouch for her like that? I know he's the defense attorney. I know he's doing his job. This is a little too far of just like, I know that she's being sincere. You don't know anything. Are you part of the same group, sir? What's going on over here? Oh, man. No one believes that bullcrap.
Does Ms. Hildebrandt recognize that it's her behavior that caused the harm to the children that she's referred to in her statement?
Your Honor, she recognizes that she was, along with Ms. Franke, that she made decisions with respect to the discipline of those children that were wrong, that caused harm to those children. She fully recognizes that and accepts responsibility for that.
All right. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Hildebrandt, this circumstance is tragic. It's largely, of course, of your making. By any measure, your conduct in this case was disastrous for these children. Adults are supposed to protect children. Adults with specialized training in particular are supposed to protect children. You didn't do that in this case. In this case, you terrorized children, and the results have been tragic. It's what happened to these children, and your philosophy in dealing with them, frankly, seems detached from reality or any objective standard of decency or even common sense. And the court finds that it is appropriate that you serve a prison sentence The court finds under the statute, Utah Code 76-3-401, that given the gravity and circumstances of the offenses, the number of victims, and the history and character and needs of the defendant, that consecutive sentences are appropriate. The court imposes 4 1 to 15-year sentences to be, again, served consecutively for each of the 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. The last thing I do need to tell you is that you only have 30 days to file or perfect an appeal of any error of the court by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the court. If you don't do that, you will lose your right to appeal. That has to be filed in writing, and again within 30 days. You also have the right to the assistance of an attorney and to have an attorney appointed if you cannot afford to hire your own. Thank you. We're in recess.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Okay, a few seconds left. Yeah, bye. For her we say go, not don't go. Go. Goodbye. Hope we never see you again. Definitely not in 4 years. Sandra says she'll be out in 30 years then. I think she's 54 years old now. It's not long enough. The sentence is not long enough. And I wouldn't normally say prison justice. Because, I don't know, that just sounds like I'm wishing violence on people. But, yeah, maybe I might say it in this case, huh? A little bit of prison justice? Oh, my word. Otherwise, they're going to get out and be like, what? How old will she be? 84. Still with her cult. She'll start a cult from in there. But what if she's out in 4? I'm so worried about this 4-year thing. Like the minimum of 4. Oh, my word. Please, no. I have to quickly show you something from this 2020 documentary. Just hold on one second. Let me find the timestamp. Okay. 1:11-ish. Somewhere here. I'm going to just play this for you over here.
Relieved because I didn't want to have to drag the victims through all of this.
Thank you. We'll be in recess.
The plea bargain was that we would drop 2 of the 6 charges, and they had to agree to plead to 4 counts, then that they would serve prison for each count, and that those counts would run consecutively, not concurrently.
With both women pleading to the same charges, the plea deal makes no distinction between the co-defendants' roles in the abuse. Although, in recognition of Ruby's cooperation in the case, prosecutors make one small concession regarding the terms of her parole.
Ruby's plea deal said that she would testify against Jodi, and we would not go to the parole board arguing that she stay in prison longer.
So you heard it. You heard it. That's a special condition that Ruby has that Jodi doesn't. That's why I'm worried about it. Like, how soon will Ruby be out? You know, based on what they just said. Listen to it one more time.
Through all of this. They had to agree to plead to 4 counts, then that they would serve prison for each count, and that those counts would run consecutively, not concurrently.
With both women pleading to the same charges, the plea deal makes no distinction between the co-defendants' roles in the abuse. Although, in recognition of Ruby's cooperation in the case, prosecutors make one small concession regarding the terms of her parole.
Ruby's plea deal said that she would testify against Jodi, and we would not go to the parole board arguing that she stay in prison longer.
So you wouldn't put the finger on the scale for her to stay in prison more?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, no. They can't basically tell the parole board, like, listen, we're going to argue that she should stay in prison for longer. Oh, man. Okay, now I want to show you the last thing for now. Okay, there's 2 things. One is this crap. Oh, my. You are not enough. So I did make a YouTube short, which has corrected what I said when I said that Jodi's book says you are not enough, because I glanced at it really quickly. Like, I don't want to look at her books, but it's still out there. These people are viewing them very badly. Okay. But you are not enough. Enoughness is the lie that keeps you from the truth of who you are. Well, unless you're a child or a man, then you're absolutely worthless, according to Jodi Hildebrandt. Right? But her books are still here. Her podcast is still here. Gross. Even Chad Daybell, different case, of course, but his stuff is still out here. Just like, can Amazon please take this crap down? Oh, my word. Okay, now I want to show you which one. Not that one. This one. Okay. So this was also on the same day that they were sentenced and it was the prosecutor talking outside, you know, like a post-sentencing press conference type thing, just a media briefing. And there were some details he shared in here that, you know, like the little boy, how he was tied and everything. That's terrible. So I just want to play that for you.
And we anticipate releasing photos when...
Wait, here we go.
Now 12-year-old had particularly bad injuries caused by the binding. Can you explain that further?
And we anticipate releasing photos when the public information is released on this.
The 30-day period.
At the end of the 30-day period. He was bound hand and foot with handcuffs around him, and at times he was laid on his stomach, and the handcuffs from his ankles to his wrists were tied, so he was hog-tied in a position that kept his legs off the ground and his arms off the ground for hours at a time. And there is clear evidence of the handcuffs cutting into him and doing harm.
Are you able to describe his phone calls in which you say Hildebrandt lacked remorse?
Yes, and we anticipate releasing those also. And generally, jailhouse calls are private matters, but if you're discussing your criminal acts, then that's not the case.
Can you describe them at all?
And Ms. Hildebrandt just has not expressed any remorse and continues to justify her perspective of things. And to the degree that in her mind it's clear that the perpetrator here is the devil and the children, and she is a victim to the devil's grander causes. At the end of the day, this is a case about religious extremism, and I think that Ms. Frankie's statement kind of got into that. These guys went down a rabbit hole, and Ms. Hildebrandt believed that she was regularly talking to God, and Ms. Frankie was...
Don't you insult rabbit holes now, sir. They went down a rabbit hole. Okay, they do it. But like, whoa. I think they're still in it. A little bit. I don't think they're out of it. Are you sure it's a rabbit hole? Seems like something else.
Following the directions that she was getting from Ms. Hildebrandt. Again, and she alluded to that in her statement. And they felt entirely justified in that they were helping children to repent and casting out devils from children, which is ludicrous and wrong because child abuse is never okay. But that was the mindset that they had at the time, and I think that you saw today. There's good reason to believe that Ms. Frankie has kind of understood that, and there's not reason to believe in Ms. Hildebrandt.
Ruby Frankie also talked about warning signs. Are there going to be potentially more cases down the line here?
Not that we're aware of.
She mentioned, or you mentioned, there's this really powerful statement. You said this was a concentration-like setting for these children.
And you know, you look at the images of people that have been stuck in concentration camps and malnourished for a time, and you look at the forced labor and the types of injuries that they have from that, and that's what these kiddos experienced. They were held, they were denied food to the point that is painfully obvious in looking at them. They were left out in the heat without water as a form of punishment.
They literally, Ruby wrote in her journals that the kids were stealing water the whole time, like, disgusting, they've stolen water again. You know, and the little boy stealing water the whole time. Stealing water. Making them a fast for days on end. Days of fasting. Days of manual labor in the sun. But even while fasting, water wasn't allowed. Dehydrated, hungry, punished severely.
And they were forced to do work in the St. George heat in June and July and August without not like without gloves, but without shoes. Being out in the desert, being forced to do labor. If that's not a concentration camp setting, I don't know what is.
We saw Sherry was here, her two older children, right? And her estranged husband, Kevin. Have you been in communication with them? What have they told you?
I have been in communication with them, and I'm not going to get into conversations with them. But I feel for what the family is going through, particularly the youngest, the primary victims. But child abuse is an awful crime, and families have to pick up the pieces.
Those two older kids were really taken aback when Jodi Hildebrandt said, "I dearly love these kids." Their reactions.
Our reactions too, even a month later. Lost my train of thought. Wait. Damn it, I was going to tell you something. It'll come back to me.
You're in disbelief on
Yeah.
this.
What do you make of that?
I obviously couldn't see them from where I was sitting. I can't, you can't climb into people's heads when they've convinced themselves of something. And I don't know that Jodi doesn't, I suspect that Jodi believes everything that she says. Loving kids in a way that is child abuse is a crime that merits prison, right? Like, that's not love, that's abuse. And I suspect that Jodi honestly believed that she was helping these children, that she was casting out devils. But that's not okay. If anybody ever finds themselves in a situation where what you're doing to kids is something that you have to actually hide from your neighbors, that's a pretty good sign that you should stop, right? And
one of the neighbors, we've only got 4 minutes left of this clip, had actually, according to Ruby's journal, come over and asked questions like, what are the kids doing out there in the sun? And like, what is happening here? And she's writing, like ranting how disrespectful they were. Like, how dare they? You know, because like, excuse me, don't interfere with our punishment over here. Okay.
And clearly that was going on. They were actively hiding things, and because the abuse was horrific, and it would have been apparent to anybody that would have seen the kids that something was wrong here.
Is this some of the worst child abuse you've seen in your career?
Yes, and not just in my career, but in our office's career, in our institutional memory, this is one of the worst child abuse cases we've seen.
You consider this precedent setting?
Can you?
In terms of the actual sentences they end up serving?
No, because I think the board takes everything into account so specifically.
Do you think Jodi's going to end up serving more?
I hope so. I hope that Jodi does serve more. I think that would only be fair. I think that Ruby should serve. So the sentence that they got is basically 4 to 30 years today, right? The 4 1-year minimum stat.
One more time. So Sniper said earlier as well, each of the 4 counts are 1 to 15 years. So total minimum of 4, but according to the Utah law, it's a max of 30. I wish there wasn't that Utah law, that it's minimum of 4, max 60. Yes.
And then in Utah, you're capped at 30 years. I think that a 4-year minimum for Ruby's actions are entirely appropriate. I hope that Jodi serves more time than that, and I hope that she isn't out of prison until everybody is completely confident that she's no longer a risk. And to get there, she's going to have to acknowledge that she has done wrong, and that you can't use religion as a means to justify your crazy behavior.
Do you think? I'm just trying to understand, why would the mother, in your opinion, deserve less time? She's torturing her kids versus a stranger. Wouldn't you hold the parent more accountable?
And again, so they both got the same deal, right? Like we didn't give her a less of a minimum time. Part of the mission of what we do when we incarcerate people, I'll obviously want to see justice done. And a mother abusing her children in this way is awful. And people should go to prison for that. Something that is really important is that people shouldn't be released from prison unless they've hit the maximum amount of time they should be in, or they've done enough that justice is served, and it's clear that they're no longer a risk to the community. And I'm super concerned that Jodi, if she were released today, is a significant risk to gather followers. Ruby was essentially a follower of Jodi, and if she's gathering people and then convincing them to do this kind of thing, that's a huge risk. And those type of people shouldn't be walking the streets when they've committed these kind of crimes.
There was some back and forth with the restitution piece of this. Can you explain where you are with that?
So there were a couple of motions filed over the course of the last month about that, and we anticipate a restitution claim coming in that will cover ongoing therapy and physical care, physical recovery if needed, of the victims of these crimes.
the state hasn't submitted a claim for restitution yet, and we want to make sure that there's plenty of time for all of that to be kind of analyzed and brought in before we would close out restitution. And that should be the same for both defendants, right? Like both of them will end up with restitution orders against them, I assume.
And that was it. You're right, mind entwined. And Lady in Grey said Ruby is the mother. Her sentence should be more severe in my opinion, especially when you take into account the YouTube channel and what she did there already leading up to all of this. Because apparently she met Jodi in late 2018. She already had a YouTube channel for 3 years, you know? So, unfortunately, it seems like Ruby is convincing people that she's like remorseful or changed. But I worry about that. And especially worry about either of them being anywhere near children ever again, right? Oh my goodness. Okay, let me take this off for us and see some of your comments, and then we'll call it a day because, oh my word, this case just gets under one's skin. It's terrible, absolutely terrible. Oh, I was going to say, the absolute hero in the story is that little boy, because he'd already tried to escape before, and he wrote a message using stones saying, in jail, I'll call you when I get there, or something like that, like at jail, in jail. He wrote that because they had so convinced him that you're gonna be incarcerated, like you are so evil, such a demon, such a this, that you're just gonna end up behind bars. That's what they told this little boy over and over again, right? So he decided, well, instead of being threatened with that all day long, I'm just gonna go turn myself in. So he left. He actually escaped the one day, and they were able to realize soon enough and got him back. Now, then they tied him up. That was the rope and the handcuffs and all of that which caused the injuries, and these two blame him for the injuries, saying, we didn't cause that. We just tied him up with rope and handcuffs. He moved around and caused that, which, as you heard the prosecutor just say, the little boy was hog-tied. So for hours and hours, like no matter how you tied up, how do you not move around at all? But he couldn't move around. So like he couldn't get up or something, but trying to just move a little bit, it caused the injuries, but they blame him for the injuries, okay? Like victim blaming to the max. But to still have that fight, that survival instinct to say, I'm gonna get out, and then get out there and go in socks in the heat and go and ring on the neighbor's doorbells, right? He tried 3 houses. The third one was successful. Shame. Like he saved his life and his sister's life. And he's the reason that these two are where they are right now. They're the ones behind bars. But unfortunately, at the time when the police had interviewed him, he thought it's his fault. Like I have these injuries because it's personal business, because it's my fault. I did this. I caused this. I deserve this type of thing. Man, I really hope that somebody can help these kids rewire that, overcome that, see exactly what Jodi and Ruby are. It's unforgivable, and it's lifelong trauma. I just feel so bad for them. Keely says that little boy is so strong, and what a risk. He was so dehydrated. He was so emaciated. He had no shoes on. He could have hallucinated. He could have passed out. He could have literally just dropped dead, but he still fought, no matter what, to go and get help. But he did say to the neighbor, I need you, can I ask 2 favors? And he said, can you take me to the nearest police station? And he said, actually, that's the only favor. But then when they offered him food and water, he said, yeah, he wants that. Shame. So they brought him food and water, and they're like, whoa, like what's happening here? And he wanted to, again, turn himself in. Just let me talk to the police, okay? Like, he already knew whatever he believed. I'm evil, I'll just turn myself in. Shame, man. Oh my goodness. So, what a story. What a case. Thank you for studying this case with me. It's really been difficult and devastating, and I couldn't do it without all of you. So, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I wish these kids the best. I believe that they are with DCYF. I hope they'll be okay. If they are, And if other families could take them in, nice families, I hope they will be, you know, I don't know. I know that Kevin Franke is fighting for them. A lot of stuff is sealed still with that. I'm not sure if he's going to get custody of them or not. I don't know. My goodness. So thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. If you are a Patreon, we're now going to have a Patreon only live stream. We could snark a little more about it, and then I'm going to show you something special from Switzerland. So maybe that'll cheer us up a little bit, because this has been bad. For everyone, remember, I'm going to be putting Ruby Franke's journal on Patreon as a post for everyone. Okay, you don't have to pay, sign up, do anything. Just go to my Patreon page, mods, if you can't share that, and then I will put that journal there if you want to read it. I don't want to say the word. It's too hard. It's too hard. Like, some of the words are just like, I can't even, you know, when parents project that on their children, it's very difficult. We all have our limits, right? So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'll keep you posted on if, you know, when parole comes up for these two. If we can make any impact there, write letters to the parole board, do anything, we will, right? So thank you so much. Please like it, share, so others can learn about this information and be more aware that really abuse can be in plain sight. You could have the happy family vloggers totally exploiting their children. It happens a lot. I would recommend don't post your kids online. Don't post pictures of them. You don't know who the consumers of those pictures are. Well, we do. If you've been here for a while, we know who consumes those. I've got to tell you more about that another time. Thank you so much. I'll see you again very soon. Thank you, mods. Bye.